Welcome to the Landing Strip with Nick Lynham and Mikey Garcia, presented by From Financial.
Welcome back to the Landing Strip after Game 1 of the Dallas Stars versus Winnipeg Jets. And a little different from us today as we're doing it the day after. As 1 a.m. come home from the game and my computer decided to restart and the mic and cameras decided not to work. So that was a ton of fun. Lots to talk about. Pretty interesting game. Didn't want to miss it. So here we go. Mikey, how are you doing today, buddy?
Doing okay. Whoa. Sorry about that. Doing okay. That was a that was quite the game yesterday. That you hate coming away from a loss on any game in the playoffs, especially one at home. But you know what? I'm not feeling too bad yet. I'm not overly worried yet. I'm kind of still excited about this one. So I know they say you're not in trouble till you lose at home. I still don't think we're in trouble yet, but I'm excited to get into it with you and get into it with the chat and see how everybody's feeling, because I bet there's some people who are maybe a little worried out there today.
Tico Napoli, like, are we doing this right now? And he's pumped he got the notification. We got to bring a show.
Right?
We got to bring a show. We missed it yesterday. Yeah, I think it is an interesting game, and I found the reactions to it have been quite scattered, and I could kind of see why. So I'll start with you before my thoughts. What is your big takeaway leaving Game 1 of the Winnipeg Jets versus Dallas Stars?
That really the difference came down yesterday to something the Jets should have had the advantage in, and that's the power play. They were a power play goal away from sending that game into overtime, and at that point, who knows where the situation goes from there. They got 4 opportunities on the power play yesterday. Everybody likes to say, once the playoffs start, the power play opportunities goes away. The whistles get put away. You're not going to, that mighty power play is not going to be any help. The Jets are getting tons of opportunity on the power play. If you're getting 4 chances in the game, you got to score one of those goals, especially with your number 1 power play, for most of the season. So that was my takeaway. There was, a lot that the Jets are going to work on coming into Game 2. There's stuff Dallas is going to work on coming into Game 2. But really, at the end of it, my big takeaway was, man, they were just a power play goal away from sending this game to overtime.
Yeah, I'm going to read out Choice's takeaway here before diving into mine. Both teams had the look of teams that were coming off hard-fought 7-game series, a lot of open ice and room to operate, very much the opposite of the Blues series. Same problem has been present all year. Dominate large portions of the game, but can't translate it to the scoreboard. And I'm feeling that I have some mixed emotions coming out of, or mixed feelings about this game, where on one hand, I think there's a lot of encouraging stuff coming out of this one. Connor Hellebuyck looked back. That was the big and boring Connor Hellebuyck. And if there's something you want to see coming into this round, it was Connor Hellebuyck looking the way he did. After a real tough start, they really took that game back, and I did feel throughout most of the game they were the better 5-on-5 team, specialty teams being the difference. And it was the type of game that the Winnipeg Jets gave themselves chances to win. There's that goalmouth scramble at the end. There's that Ehlers drive. There was that Ehlers play to DeMello. I want to say there was a Scheifele play. Like, the Jets did create opportunities for themselves to win that hockey game. But on the reverse of it, I feel fine because it was so winnable and they didn't come out to take it. So I think that's why you see Scott Arniel react the way he did. I didn't think it was nearly as bad as his perception, but I liked him going to the wake-up message after a one-game loss like that, where it was there for the taking and you've now lost that home ice. So I wasn't as down on it as Scott Arniel, but I also wasn't as high on it as some of the stuff I've seen on socials. I think some of what Scott Arniel was pissed off about was relevant in that game, where the compete and the style of game looks completely different than the St. Louis series. This was never going to be a big juggernaut physical battle. But there was a lot of a lot of issues with execution, puck management, making some real odd plays with it that go the wrong way. And for me, at the end of the day, it felt like a typical game one. And I think Choices makes a good point with two teams coming off of game seven. It was a typical game one feeling out process for me, I felt, where I don't think we've seen either team's best through game one. And it's going to be interesting to see who builds off of it to take what into game two. But I do feel with the style of game that we did see, I come out of it feeling pretty damn encouraged and pretty good about where this series can go. I do think this one's going to go the distance. If you've seen any of my social media stuff, I think this is going to be a 7-gamer. And I'm even with the first game loss, I'm taking the Winnipeg Jets in 7. I think they're going to take one in Dallas. But yeah, I'm having trouble being too down on that game, but I'm also frustrated in a game like that where it was there for the taking. They drop it and find themselves giving Dallas the home ice. So I'm kind of somewhere in the middle on this one.
Yeah, the again, shouting out to Choices, very much feels like a wasted opportunity. You know, it's Scott Arniel said in the post-game comments yesterday that this didn't feel like a playoff game. It felt like, you know, game 40 in the middle of December. And I kind of agree with him on that one. It felt like a regular season game. They were just kind of going through the motions, like you said, maybe a bit of a feeling out process. We got to see nowhere near either team's best yet. So, yeah, it's hard for me to be too down on it when, again, they're one bounce away from, you know, a very different outcome. But at the same time, you don't have a lot of opportunities left, right? We're in the playoffs. These home opportunities are very limited. And to hand home ice advantage back to Dallas is not something that you want to do. So now they have to go in and win at least one game in Dallas no matter what. And I think they're good enough to do it, especially if they can, you know, start to get a little bit healthy, fingers crossed. But beyond that, it's, yeah, I'm having a tough time as well being too down on them after that game, even though it is a loss at home.
So we're gonna help our friend Ball Hockey Videos, who needs some therapy today. For some reason, I am feeling I'm really taking this loss hard. Hellebuck played good. The Jets were pretty good overall, and we lost. Not a good sign at all. And I think it's important to just keep in mind in a 7-game run, it's easy. One game means a lot. It's a race to 4. There's no doubt about it. And when you lose game 1 at home, the advantage moves to the Stars, who now have the home ice advantage, where they could simply win their 3 games at home and win this series in 6. But it's also what I'm kind of taking out of this is the encouraging signs. The top line, I thought, had a real strong game for Winnipeg in their first game fully back together with everybody healthy now. I think that's a positive. I don't think Dylan Sandberg is going to get as bad puck luck throughout this series. I mean, I felt like an idiot when I tweet yesterday afternoon that all we need to do is keep Dylan Sandberg on Mikko Rantanen's hip, and then the first goal of the game is Dylan Sandberg on Mikko Rantanen's hip, and it still finds its way there. Yep. Obviously, that pass goes off his skate and in for Rantanen. Rantanen scores 3 goals, right? And that is the difference. The power play for me coming out of this was the big concern. If you get 4 opportunities and you had the best power play most of this year, you have to
score one.
You have to. You have to get on the board. Those are the differences in playoff rounds, in playoff games, and they weren't able to accomplish that. And that's where this game comes down to it. This is one of those where there's a lot of ifs. If this went well, if that goal mill scramble in the last minute, if Ehlers or Velarde could get their stick on that puck.
Just get there.
And I see there's some concerns about Velarde and Ehlers in the chat, and I do want to talk about both of them. But we also did see, and this is where it's interesting, Scott Arniel went to the line blender going into the third. And it's interesting to me that it feels like he's known the middle 6 as Plan A's version has been a problem for a while. Like, how many times down the stretch did we see that line blender there? Yep. Now we're seeing it 40 minutes into game 1 of round 2. And I liked some of the ideas of where the blender went. I didn't like some of the others. I like keeping the top line intact as much as I've had my issues with that line in games past. And I think against this Dallas team, where this series isn't going to be as aggressive, where there's going to be goals in transition, where Dallas's skill guys are going to take over moments in this. Yep. I do think that we do have to re-envision this top 9 in this series a little bit. We'll talk about the decor soon because I think there's some tweaks there to discuss and some big performances as well. But the one thing I didn't enjoy about the blender yesterday was just simply swapping Ehlers and Nino. As much as we were hoping that the Nemeskov, Perfetti, Nino line as a third line would be a success, I think it's had its struggles more often than kind of taking over.
Yep.
Nino gets on the board, of course, so I don't want to diminish that too much. But what I really didn't like about the blender, and it's a really interesting conversation to have when you look at the points. So you swap Ehlers and Nino, and it leaves you with Ehlers, Lowry, and Appleton for the third period. And I like some of the looks we got. If you want to take some encouragement on the idea of needing more from Nick Ehlers, I thought that third period was his best period since he's gotten back. And we've seen this. When he gets to play with Adam Lowry, it opens up ice for him to get those feet moving and create off of. And we saw that version come out in the third period. So I think that's something to be encouraged about and something to potentially look to elevate this thing. I also have trouble seeing Mikko Rantanen continue this torrid pace. 8 goals on his last 17 shots.
Unreal.
At some point, that luck's got to die down. But on the reverse of it, I've watched a lot of Mikko Rantanen, and the one concern I have coming out of that game is he's got a little bit of PLD in him. Where he's a bigger star than PLD, and he could take over games in a dominant fashion. And despite having 3 goals yesterday, I didn't see that version of Mikko Rantanen that we saw in games 5 to 7 against Colorado. And I think Ball Hockey Videos does make a great point that this wasn't Dallas's best either. I would expect a better showing from Dallas moving forward. Blake Grice says, just showed up. Have we addressed IFL on the fourth line? You got to get him up with Ehlers and Lowry. And that's where we're at right now. This is exactly where we're at, Blake. So you're joining in at the right time to answer Ball Hockey's video in this point here. Because Ball Hockey makes the right counterpoint here. I'm pretty sure Appleton has 8 points, so you can't really fault what the coaches are doing. Mason Appleton has the craziest point per game playoff experience I've ever seen. And honestly, I left last night's game. That's the guy I was really fired up about in a bad way. Because as much as those points are there, it is the little plays in this playoff hockey that make the difference. And it felt like every single time it's on his stick, it's ending up with Dallas possessions.
Yes.
Offensively, defensively, we saw a couple chips that were to his guy that he's supposed to be at. And I'm where Blake is, where I like to see the blender come up and try to spark something throughout the depth. But IFL or Morgan Barron has to be coming into that top 9, and Mason Appleton has to be playing fourth line minutes at this point. Yeah. We saw it in Game 7. He gets demoted. We load up the top 9. You get a career game out of that IFL, Lowry, Connor version. You got contributions from Ehlers down that stretch. And Iafallo has been such a dog on the details for this team over the last 2 months that for me it's criminal. He's playing on the fourth line, and you're seeing mistake after mistake after mistake there. So yes, he's a point of a game player, but everything else he's doing is costing the Jets possession and opportunities to score goals when we're looking to score goals. And it is a complicated conversation, because how often can you look at a guy with 8 points in 8 games and say, this guy's not performing? But if you're looking at the little details within a game that come up over and over and can shift the tides of a game, he seems to be coming out on the worst end of those quite often. And I just don't understand why he continues to get as much rope as he did.
Yeah, we talked about it the other day. He had the worst 3-point game in the history of the NHL. I've never seen somebody play worse and have 3 points in a game. Sometimes you're just in the right place at the right time. I'm going to extend the challenge out again to the listeners and to anybody that's catching this. In the next game, keep an eye on Mason Appleton. Specifically, watch Appleton every time that line is on the ice and count how many opportunities he has streaking in on the goalie with a very clear and open lane that Adam Lowry or whoever plays him into. If you do it as a drinking game, you'll have alcohol poisoning before the second period is even up. He is getting into really great spots because of how that line is, able to work. He just has absolutely no ability to be able to finish. It's painful, and not only not finish, so often it does end up on the stick of the opposing team, coming back the other way. It's very noticeable. how it's just not working for him there. And the contrast gets worse when you have Alex Iafallo, who apparently is good enough to play on your top line when there's an injury, but is not good enough to unseat Mason Appleton at 5-on-5. It doesn't make any sense. Appleton at 5-on-5 yesterday played more than Adam Lowry, Cole Perfetti, Vlad Nemestikov, Nick Ehlers, Nino Niederreiter, Alex Iafallo, Morgan Barron, and Brandon Tanev. He played more at 5-on-5 than all of those guys. There's no way. I don't care if you drafted him or if you birthed him from your own loins. Nobody could watch him play and go, yeah, he should be playing above those guys. It doesn't make any sense to me right now. I don't get it.
And Ball Hockey says, watch, Apple's going to have a great game. I hope so. That's how these things tend to work. But at the end of the day, we've seen how this team has played all year. And I'm sorry, Mason Appleton is not a top 9 player. No. And in a series like this, where the physical grind is less, you're going to see more talent shine through. Goals are going to come on transition plays, and you're going to need a Barry. Dallas is going to score goals. They got some real star-level talent there. You can't afford to play someone that is going to help play into what Dallas is doing as much as you just pointed out.
Yeah, it's not going to go in their way. This isn't the Blues. We're not playing that style of game right now. We've got to start skating and producing on the scoreboard. And just Apple's, like I said, you swap him out with somebody like Iafallo, who has those details down, that is able to get those little finishes. You're going to start getting the offense that you need from that middle six. That has, been the difference maker, where right now you're just, it's, as Nelson Pacheco over on Facebook said, it's where the play goes to die right now.
100%. And they do need more. Ball Hockey Videos is correct on they need more from some of their big guys. Gabe Velarde, I think outside yesterday's game, I thought that top line was well, so I don't want to get on Villard too much. I thought he struggled in that St. Louis series. They're going to need Ehlers to get on the board. I thought he had a real sloppy first 40. You saw his feet starting to go, but he felt disconnected from that line. And then in the third period with Adam Lowry, I thought you saw the version of Nick Ehlers we expect. So I'm kind of optimistic that he's going to carry that in. We'll see what the line combos start as. And then I thought this was a tough night for Cole Perfetti as well, coming off the biggest night of his life.
Yep.
You're going to need to see him back at that level.
Yep, absolutely. That was not his best game for sure. It's a guy that I've hyped up quite a bit throughout the year. And yeah, it was not a good night out there for him or for that line. So he's got to start producing if they're going to keep going through. We need more of those miracles, because right now, guys are banged up, guys are hurt. We're dropping mid-game for some of these guys. So they need as much offense as they possibly can throughout the lineup.
And last point on this, and we'll continue moving on here. Zuch 40 had said need IFL on the other ring with Ehlers and Lowry, which is something we all agree with. Yep. Whether it's Lowry and Ehlers or Lowry and Connor, I think that should be your second line in this series. And Choices TK says, plus IFL on the cycle and puck retrievals is a stud. And he's been doing that for this team for months now. Now, to address some of the trolling, Scott Westman says, did the Jets win tonight? Zuch 40 says, did I miss the Jets game today? I know I smoked a blunt and woke up hours later, but it is still Thursday. And it is. We had tried to get a 1 a.m. stream going last night, and unfortunately the computer crapped out. So we wanted to make up for it. We still wanted to talk about the game. We didn't want to leave you hanging, so we're doing this tonight, and we're happy you're here. And to be Sarge, the beers are not still being had. We got into them in Game 7. It's back to business. No, it's back to business. We'll. I don't know if I need to show that side of me on camera. I was getting made fun of at baseball tonight quite a bit. On Ball Hockey Videos does name someone that I've got a lot of people were frustrated with yesterday. Connor is another guy that has a ton of points, and yes, he has scored some big goals, but he's been invisible in several games, and I think that has been an aspect. He's one of those guys, everyone knows what he does well. He leads the team in points in the playoffs right now. I thought that line was good, so I don't want to shit him too hard. And you just know he's going to shy away from the physical stuff, which is frustrating at this time of year. But I can't beat up that line, who I thought was the Winnipeg Jets best line by a mile yesterday. Yeah,
I totally agree. You want Connor to be dominant in every game. You want him to be the superstar, right? That the Jets really kind of need. You want him to be the Rantanen and get the 3 goals and keep pace with it. it wasn't it wasn't happening on the scoreboard. And yeah, like you said though, that line was probably the best one easily out of the grouping. So it's hard to hit on them too hard, but again, it's in a game where you were only down by one goal at the end of it. There's so many opportunities you look at and go, well, right there was an opportunity where they could have tied it up. There's one where Connor could have had it. There's one where Scheifele could have had it. So it's hard to not lament those little things now.
No, 100%, 100%. Beer League, we just kind of went through that convo with IFL, so you might have to scroll back a little bit because I completely agree with your take.
Yep.
But to continue on with Beer League's point here, I do want to get here. Fleury was unnoticeably decent again last night. See you later, Stan. And obviously he makes that big pass on the one goal as well. Hayden Fleury, talk about a guy finding his career best in a big spot here, jumping into the lineup in Game 7, parlaying it into a really strong Game 1. What did you see out of the decor yesterday? What did you see out of Hayden Fleury? And where do you think this goes if Josh Morrissey plays tomorrow, which my spidey senses are tingling that he will be making a return, but we'll see about that.
Yeah, Hayden Fleury's got a real knack for being able to come in cold and look pretty decent for a short stretch. Earlier on in the season, we saw that right at the beginning of the year. And then when he got a bit of a longer run mid-year, you started to see some of the holes, some of the things that, had maybe relegated him to more of a depth guy. But again, here popping into the playoffs in emergency situation, coming in cold and having some, a really good game the last game and a decent one this time. It doesn't look great if you start to pick apart the numbers for him individually and for that pairing. But the eye test overall was like they was said in the chat, he was unnoticeably decent. There was nothing super big, nothing super glaring to make you go, oh God, get this guy off the top line. He played a shitload of minutes, 5-on-5, played them with Dylan Sandberg. I thought he did well. If Morrissey comes back in and Stan is still out, I think you see Fleury drop to that third pairing to play with Luke Shen. If Stanley and Morrissey both come back at any point, unfortunately, no matter how good the play of Hayden Fleury is, it'll be Logan Stanley and Luke Shen on that third pairing. So, if they get Morrissey back, I do expect to see Fleury taking Miller's spot, even though me, I'm a big Miller guy now.
Yeah, we'll talk about him in a second here. I just want to get the choices with Dmitry Filipovic of the PDO cast. Our guy, I love Dmitry. We'll take that quote.
Friend of the pod.
Said that the Jets forwards must be in complete disbelief that they are actually receiving breakout passes they can work with after a full season of watching Logan. And it is going to be interesting because the only reason he hasn't played the last couple of games is he's hurt. And we know this coaching staff has continued to go back to where they start. Even Ball Hockey Videos is guessing here that the blender is going to come out tomorrow if things aren't working after the first 30. And that's been their MO all year. I think at this point they don't have the leash to wait through it. We've talked about how there's better ways to construct this lineup, and plan A was never going to be the way that this team gets through the playoffs, and I think you need to see an adjustment right from minute one tomorrow. I do expect Fleury to stay in for Stan just because of the last two games, but the first sign of struggle, I would think Fleury's coming out, unfortunately, when you have those biases set in.
You've got more faith than I do.
Yeah, fair. Zuch 40 though. I want to bring up Miller because I saw both sides of Colin Miller today. So yesterday, Zuch 40 said Miller struggled. I felt looked like a guy who hasn't played in weeks. What did you see from Colin Miller? What did you see from Luke Shen? Because I want to parlay that into a bit of a discussion here.
So yeah, Miller's been another guy who's been able to come in cold very frequently and not look out of place. I thought there was a couple instances last night defensively where it was quite obvious that there was a bit of a miscommunication and Luke Shen's lack of foot speed really got the two of them in trouble a couple times. But overall, I thought they were fine. They were decent across the board in terms of shot attempts, in terms of their high danger chances. They were clearing out the front of the net when needed. And I love the Colin Miller shot from the point when they can get that working. It's something they don't have otherwise right now, especially with Josh Morrissey being out. So I really think Colin Miller gives them the offensive dynamic that they're missing from the back end right now. That's why I'd much rather see him stay in at this point, even if there are some defensive glares that can sometimes hit him. But overall, I view him higher than I do Hayden Fleury, even though the coaching staff sees it differently.
So this is how I saw it. I saw the struggles. He definitely, first game playing on his offhand, you could see where that adjustment was coming and there was some bobbles and whatnot. But I also find it fascinating that he was trusted, and rightfully so, to be on the 6-on-5 trying to get that shot through. So it's an interesting dichotomy that the Jets coaching staff has here, where they seem to understand the players' strengths and like who they can get more out of when those guys are in the lineup and how to use them. But they almost handcuff themselves with preferably worse options going into a game.
Yep.
And here's where I'm at with the two righties. Luke Shen, I think, had a clear role in the St. Louis series. Didn't handle his minutes in that series very well at all, but I can make the case for what his role in a physical series like that was. I can't in this series. This is when we were talking at the deadline and we've talked about different pairings, different matchups. This is one where I'd like to see, and we're not going to see it, but this is one where I'd like to see Colin Miller actually taking Luke Shen's job in this round and playing on his strong side with Hayden Fleury. Just because of the style of play that Dallas plays. Like, part of this is playing poker, playing chess, and I thought Luke Shen's lack of foot speed was definitely far more evident than Colin Miller's struggles, and I didn't see much that he was bringing positively to outweigh that. Dallas is the type of team that's going to attack you on the rush. They're going to take advantage. They got skill forwards that can skate, and I think Luke Shen's going to be swimming on an island in this series with his lack of foot speed, that I would much rather that adjustment come into play, where at least Colin Miller can move the puck. At least he can skate and make recoveries if he's out of position. And he gives you that shot through where you're going to have to start crashing the net around Otter. That's where I'm at there.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see them go to a different look on that third pairing. Just because having Luke Shen in at this point, not only are you exposing yourself to something that, like you said, Dallas does really well, it's opening a door for them, you're also now putting a heavier strain on the rest of your D-corps because you're essentially cutting your bench down to 5 guys. Luke Shen yesterday, the only players that he played more at 5-on-5 is the fourth line. He played less than every other player minus the fourth line, and he had the same minutes as those guys. Like, he was on the ice at 5-on-5 as a fourth liner essentially, which you can't have that, right? You either need to be productive and you need to be able to contribute, or you're just not only like you're the issue when you're on the ice, but now you're creating that strain on the other guys who are having to play more and cycle through different pairings. So yeah, it's doesn't make a lot of sense to have guys in. They were doing it with Stanley earlier too before he got hurt, where you're going to play them, 5 to 10 minutes total in the game and have your other guys all play 30. It doesn't make any sense to have them in the lineup if you're not going to use them, but you can't use them because it's a very obvious opening for the other team. So the usage this year, we've talked about it all year long, is absolutely confounding if you try to approach it just from a performance standpoint. If you're just trying to find the best guys who are playing the best at that moment, you look at it and go, well, these minutes and these pairings don't make sense. And then you start hearing about all the other stuff, and it does, but it just, it's really frustrating come playoff time to cut your bench so short when you do have other options that you probably could be running.
Yeah, really curious to see how they respond. I think most of us expect them to go back to plan A, but
100%
we'll see. Yeah. We'll see. He was pretty fired up after the game, so we'll see what that means. But before we get into the From Financial face-off, let's talk Connor Hellebuyck quickly. What did you see from Connor Hellebuyck to start round one of the game one of round two?
So earlier, I talked about how Scott Arniel said this looks like game 40 in the middle of the season. I thought we got to see mid-season Connor Hellebuyck yesterday. He was calm, he was cool, he was collected. This wasn't the nervous wrack Connor Hellebuyck that we experienced in a few of those round one games. Talking about clenching every single time the play was coming down. I didn't have that feeling yesterday. It felt like mid-season Connor Hellebuyck, the guy that we were calling for the Vezina, the guy that we were calling for the Hart. It felt much more like a normal game from him. So I was real encouraged by that. I'm hoping that we continue to see him, not let these things get in his head, not let the weight of the moment start to, maybe press those buttons. Because when he's locked in like this, it gives the Jets a chance to win even on the nights where they're not playing their best.
Yeah, I was very, very, very encouraged with what we saw from Connor Hellebuck yesterday, and I think that's the big thing we got to be feeling good about. Obviously, we know how important he is to this team's success. He's their best player, and we saw the big, boring, calm version yesterday where even with who I went with yesterday, we were talking about how in that first period, he starts with that 8-0, 9-0 run or whatever, and it was back to looking like they weren't big saves. Like he was in the right position. He made it look a lot easier than it necessarily should have been. And that's great to see. That's huge. And I do believe, despite the national narrative, that the Olympic goalie for Team USA is in Dallas's crease for this series. I'm very confident after watching Game 1 that the Winnipeg Jets have the better goalie despite the result, and Jake Ottinger played well last night.
Yep.
There was a ton of Jets opportunities that could have went the other way, and Jake Ottinger came up with those saves. But I like where this is trending from Connor Hellebuck. And one thing, I'm a sucker. I got to say this. I'm a sucker for those like hero-type stories where you hear after the game, like so-and-so did this in the locker room, so-and-so did this in the locker room, and it led to this. And we saw Neil Pionk talking about how in that second intermission at 3-1 in Game 7, Connor Hellebuck announced to the room that not another one was going in, and he looked dialed in the third period on.
Yeah.
So he seemed to mentally shed something. And I think this was an important step for Connor Hellebuck, is the first media avail after round 1. So as we're all familiar with Connor Hellebuck, he's always taken interviews and really focused on the positives and tried to focus on the next game. And even when he's lost, he's studied goaltending more than any other goalie, or was at the best peak of his game in the Colorado series. And we've seen him take that road. And I think it was important to see him take questions on his series and really acknowledge the fact that he felt the pressure and it was getting to him, and that he was really struggling with it because he wanted to win, and it had been a long time, and he had finally shed that. And I think that's an important difference, because it was clear he was in his own head in that first round. Yeah. No matter what anyone wants to say. We watched it. We have him up here celebrating at heart, giving him those MVP chants. And we saw probably the lowest moment of his career in round 1. So for him to bounce back so well, it is a great step for me, and for him to actually talk about it in that way, I think is one of those accountability, character building moments, and that was something I enjoyed seeing. And kind of my theory coming into the series, and despite it being 1-0, I feel really good about where this team is at. My theory, and maybe I posted that thread. It's been all over the place: Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok. Twitter, but I want to talk about it for a second, where I think it was really clear in a lot of the interviews afterwards, a lot of the social clips, that this team was feeling the pressure in a big way to get out of the first round. And I do think it could really unlock a mental block. And we saw this team control a lot of the 5-on-5 game early in this series. This series is going to play into their style of play a lot better, I think, than the St. Louis one. And I do think that this team, now that they've gotten that taste, that they're going to rebound well in Winnipeg tomorrow. And I think they're going to steal one in 3 or 4 in Dallas. I feel really good about where the Winnipeg Jets are from a standpoint of they finally got over the hump. They've shown us all year that this has been different. They've been able to bounce back. They've been able to correct themselves, that once they got over Game 7 for me, and the fashion in which we saw Game 7 play out. Game 7 was the epitome of the last 3 years. And this might be over-romanticizing the storyline and how we've arrived here. But Game 7, you saw for the first 40 minutes, this core and this team looking like they were going to blow this thing again. And they were going to be on fraud watch again. And we were going to be discussing that. And they flipped the script in the third period with their first 2-goal comeback this year with that Bones pushback. And they do it in historic fashion. And then they dominate overtime to get themselves to this point. I think this team, by doing what they did in round 1, has earned our trust that they're going to handle this Dallas matchup, a team I still feel after game one they match up systematically really well with. And I think we're getting a bounce back tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. We've talked all year about how this has been a year of firsts, right? They've set NHL records to start the year. They set franchise records for points and wins. They've, the President's Trophy win, all of these things. Yeah. And then even just first on the season, right? Their first win after being down multiple goals in the third. They just pulled off the other day. So now that the Jets have lost game one in the series, they've got the chance to do another first. Because not either in both 1.0 Jets history or in Jets 2.0 history have they won a series after losing the first game.
Ooh.
So we've got a chance to do one more piece of history to write this team into the Winnipeg history books to go on and win this 1-7. I agree with you. I think they're going to win at least one of these games in Dallas. If they get two of them and they want to do it up in 6, we can take it that way. I'm fine too. But I still feel good about this the series even after that loss yesterday. I feel better about it than I did coming off of the St. Louis games easily. I'm not nearly as afraid of going into Dallas to try to get this win.
This is the series of flipping the script, flipping the narrative. They're going to set that first, and they're going to be the first team to beat Pete DeBoer in Game 7. I'm not betting. I see Zooch.
I like that.
Zooch says that the Jets are winning 4 straight. I'm not going there. This is going the distance. I do not want to undersell the Dallas Stars at all. They have the top-end talent to take over and win games on their own. Ottinger could steal a game. As much as I love to make fun of that guy, he can steal a game. Rantanen just put up 3 goals in a fashion that is kind of annoying to watch, but at the same time, I had a lot of texts about it being the luckiest hat trick. He was still getting himself into the right positions to create those situations. I think this is going the distance, and not only are they going to do that first, they're going to beat Pete DeBoer in Game 7.
I like that. I like that a lot. Over on Twitch, there's Zooch40 going back a little bit. The Jets played well and controlled a lot, and Dallas isn't going to get that performance from Rantanen every game, right? That was one of those weird games for Rantanen where just everything was going in. That's not statistically, right? That's just not going to happen every single game. So if you can go out and try to sneak a few past and get it in Dallas, I think they can do it. I do.
I'm going to throw a little bit of cold water because I just don't want to undersell the Dallas response because I don't think we saw Dallas at their best yet.
No,
either.
Definitely not.
And I don't want to lose sight of that. And I like where Kishore went here. The reason to be pessimistic is how locked in Otter looks. He was great last night. And he was as much as we're talking about Connor Hellebuyck looking back, Ottinger was the better goaltender last night. He won that battle last night. And Kishore also points out, I'm optimistic because the Dallas PK aggressive is going to backfire. Can't give the Jets that much space down low. And we saw it on some of their looks. Like the PP was, there was a couple, 2, 3, maybe 4 quality looks, and a couple of them came from that down low space. Yep. It was nice to see Gabe Lardy operating in front, and he had just came close on that side post where Otter got the pad down. I like exactly where Kishore went here, where that power play, if they start working down low, there's a huge gap there where the Dallas D cannot get back quick enough. If they start driving that line and getting bodies to the net, that's the place to do it. So I like that from Kishore. I also want to point out on the idea of Dallas is still going to bring some. Despite how we're talking about the Rantanen series, there is still another level to his game on the complete package size. That was Robo's first game back. At some point, we're expecting Heiskanen back into the series. So there's still good things coming for them, and they stole game 1 on the road. So I think that's something that we should still be cognizant about and not get too ahead of things. Yep. These are 2 really good hockey teams at the end of the day. Dallas probably a little bit more top-heavy on the talent level. Jets probably more systematically tougher to play against than Dallas. And we're going to see what wins out here at the end of the day. But yeah, Otter looked locked. He's gone on some runs in playoffs that have kind of made this rep for him, but I'm betting on a 1 or 2 Otter stinkers coming. I just can't buy that guy. I can't buy into him. I really can't.
And I don't think you're going to have to. I don't think you're going to have to. Like you said, Dallas is good. It's not going to be a short series. I don't think the 4 straight that Zooch said is going to come to fruition. But at the end of the day, I'll take the Connor Hellebuyck gamble over the Jake Ottinger gamble.
I like this from Funner on YouTube comparing St. Louis and Dallas. St. Louis was like the grindcore punk band with drug problems. Dallas is a Czech orchestra with a formidable tenor. And I do think that's a great analogy on how to like separate what we're kind of dealing with here as this series moves on.
100%.
But I do think if you're looking at some of the optimistic sides, I do think with how solid the Jets have been at 5-on-5 specifically, especially defensively, and the lack of physical aggression out of Dallas will play into Winnipeg's strengths if they're able to move the puck. Yeah. Getting Josh Morrissey back will be a huge aspect of that. He is really their only natural puck mover. I think yesterday's game showed a lot of what the Jets miss in Josh Morrissey. Yeah. I don't want to lean on it as an excuse much because two of the similar quality players are missing for both teams. And you can make a lot of the same cases for Dallas, where I thought Winnipeg did a pretty good job exposing how bad some of their D are at moving the puck. A guy like Cody Ceci was skating back into traffic often and kind of causing havoc. The one thing I'd like to see from the Winnipeg Jets, especially while Heiskanen is gone, they got to get harder on Thomas Harley. They got to get harder on Thomas Harley, the best D-man in that game for my money. In a series that's missing the two top guys from each team, Thomas Harley's got to be the guy that the Winnipeg Jets start leaning on and making this a tougher series from him. Yep. I also thought Essel Lindell had a real strong game net front and doing all those kinds of things.
Saved a goal.
But he saved a goal, 100%. And he's a quality defensive guy, so I don't want to lose track of that. But if you want to slow down the Dallas Stars even more, a team that can beat you on transition, but doesn't necessarily have the puck movers on the back end, it's time to lean on Thomas Harley and make this series difficult from him. And you're going to see that D-core implode in ways that this team offensively will be able to take care of.
Yeah, the Jets have a really clear spot that they can start attacking, especially with Heiskanen still not back. I'm real curious on what they're going to be able to do with it. Somebody over on I lost it now on sorry, I think it was YouTube, asked if we think Arniel's going to have an answer to the double shifting of Rantanen. And I don't know. What do you think?
I think right now, and I think that was really smart on Pete DeBoer.
Yeah.
Especially on home. Let's go for the throat early. Let's try and take back control. And that's aggressive coaching. And the Winnipeg Jets, Rantanen does pose a pretty big problem for how the Jets D-core is assembled. As strong as they've been as a defensive unit, 5-man unit, we do know the net front and the physical stuff down low to lean on some of those D can create problems for the Winnipeg Jets. And Rantanen is such a force and a dangerous one at that in those areas. It's going to be hard for them to match it until Morrissey's back, which I'm expecting. I'm guessing based on what we've seen on the progression. Here's my theory. I know nothing at this point, but there was a lot of talk about it being a shoulder. If you left Game 7 with a shoulder injury, it likely would have been really bad, and we're not looking at Josh Morrissey go from a non-contact jersey to a contact jersey to a contact jersey. My theory, this is just me reading the tea leaves on how this is progressing. My theory is J-Mo's in the protocol.
Yep.
Like Mark Scheifele was. And we've seen him skate 3 days in a row. I'm expecting J-Mo to skate tomorrow, hopefully, as long as there was no setbacks. Who knows, right? We don't know what we're dealing with. We're taking plausible guesses here. I just think if it was a shoulder, it's hard to imagine we're even looking at the idea of him being back so quickly. That I'm hoping we see him skate and back in this lineup. And that'll give them both Sandberg and Morrissey to just kind of go back. And you're kind of spreading those minutes out where all of a sudden you get Sandberg out there. Morrissey's going to have a great matchup at some point where you could kind of free him up. Yep. But if you got to hold him there for a guy like Rantanen, at least you'll have that.
Yeah, I totally agree. If it was a shoulder injury bad enough to stop him from playing in Game 7, it would not have healed enough in that short amount of time, right? So, yeah, no, totally agree. It's probably that he's in the protocol, and if we get lucky enough that he's feeling okay and that he's clear-headed and everything's all right and he can get into the lineup, that does help with the Rantanen issue right there.
Kishore says, if JMO is back tomorrow, do you go to Fleury Miller bottom pairing? Both looked great last night, and we'll just put a cap on this because we kind of went through this already. I know Kishore just got here, so I don't want to be too hard on him. That's exactly where I end up, is they have to. You have to match Dallas's transition and speed aspect, and Luke Shen, despite the physical element, it's just not going to be a factor in this series. This series will not look like St. Louis. He's going to get caught up more often than not. In this series, more than St. Louis, and they were a liability in the St. Louis series. Stanley and Shen have no business playing in this series. They just cannot keep up with the play. They cannot move their feet. They have to make that adjustment.
Yeah, it's a shift that I would absolutely make. It's one that you would make. It's not one I see Scott Arniel and the coaching staff making, unfortunately. If Morrissey is back, I think we're going to see Fleury and Shen. And then as soon as Logan Stanley is healthy enough to play, I think he slots right back into that third pairing, and they're going to play 6 to 8 minutes of 5-on-5 hockey a night.
Ball Hockey Videos asks, how about we just stop with the chants? Those always seem to have bad karma. And I could not disagree with this take at anymore, honestly.
Yeah, no,
part of being a part of a crowd like that, and what makes it special is seeing 15,000 plus get in unison to do that sort of thing. It's what makes sports out in Europe so special, that they are unabashedly about that. And this is their first loss at home. They won the first 4 games at home despite chants and noise. I can't buy that at all. We need more energy. I actually thought, I've been to all 5. I thought yesterday was the most timid of the 5 games so far from the crowd, honestly, outside the U.S. backup chant, which I love. I was belting it out myself. I don't want to see that energy leave the arena. I want more of it. Let's bring more chants, to be quite frank.
Yeah, I come from the world of soccer, right? So we're all about a chant, a song, trying to get under the other players' skin a little bit in mind. The only one I don't like, and I will say, is if you're doing the goalie name chant, it's got to be after a goal only. You can't do it at any other point in the game. I'm sorry, because at any other point they're doing their job. Even if if you had a great chance and your guy comes in, that means it was a big save and that's a good thing for him. So I don't like it when it's not after a goal. That one's the only one that I'd say we got to work on. But beyond that, no, I fucking love the chants. The more the better.
And I think Gilbert Marion nails this. Friday night will be hype. A near 9 o'clock start in this market on a Friday night. Woo! It's gonna be a time in there. I'm excited to get there tomorrow.
That's gonna be a fun one.
Okay, we're gonna go to Mr. Jeremy on Twitch's question. Then let's jump into the From Financial face-off. Mr. Jeremy says, "Do you think the extra rest Dallas had benefited them?" What do you think of that?
Yeah, probably from 2 different aspects, right? There's the very on-the-face plain aspect of more time off to rest your body, let your little nicks and things like that heal up. The other side of it, too, is the mental aspect of it, right? You get more time to start to game plan a little bit, to kind of decompress and focus more on your second-round opponent. When you're jumping right from Game 7 to straight into Game 1, It honestly felt like the Jets were still trying to play the St. Louis series for the first half of that game. They were still expecting it to be a physical, slow kind of, knock your teeth out type of series, when Dallas was like, "No, we're here to skate." So, yeah, I definitely think it benefited Dallas, but just in Game 1. I think now that we're into it, we should start to see that type of stuff, even out. But, yeah, I absolutely think it played a factor.
Yeah, I think the emotion of that Game 7 too, and the 2-day break, I just don't want to lean on that too much when both teams went to 7 hard-fought games in their respective series. And this was the type of game that could have went either way. This was the coin flip at the end of the day, where the Jets generated some quality looks and weren't able to bury. And Kishore kind of puts it the right way here. Yesterday was sloppy. Jets looked a little hungover. Lots of guys falling down too. Like, you did see that in their game, but I also think you saw some of it from Dallas, where the Jets could have taken advantage, and the puck just didn't go in for them last night.
Yep.
So it's hard for me to lean into that. I think you saw it in both teams, and some of the turnovers, some of the sloppiness, honestly, that game was a bit boring for stretches of not much really going on. And I'm expecting both teams to ramp it up tomorrow night.
Yeah, I totally agree.
T. Konapali says, not sure about the backup chant. Kind of puts down Comrie. Comrie's not even in the running for the U.S. Olympic team. I'm not worried about Comrie's feelings on that one. I got to be quite frank with you. No one in the NHL is happier to be involved in the NHL as a backup as Eric Comrie.
Yeah.
Not worried about his feelings at all on that one, I got to say. But
I did love the celebration of Comrie and Hellebuck on the ice after Game 7. That was one of my favorite parts, was seeing Comrie rush out there to him and give him a big hug. It was awesome.
Okay, let's get into the From Financial Face-Off. What details in this game was the tipping point in the result? What details do you want to see change? Could be lineup decisions, could be something you saw from the Jets play that you think they could push on to open this series up tomorrow night in Winnipeg against Dallas for Game 2. Let's get into the From Financial Face-Off.
Right on.
Right on. So we want to hear from you in the chat. What is your From Financial face-off difference in Game 1? Or what is the difference going into Game 2 for the Winnipeg Jets to pull out a better result? Mikey, where do you want to go with yours today?
Mine's a pretty obvious one. It's something we've talked about a little bit already. It was the power play. The Jets were, I think the difference yesterday, 100% was the power play. It's been a crutch that they could lean on all year long. They've had that trump card, that secret weapon ready to go. And in a game where they had 4 opportunities, you have to score at least one of those, especially with how good they have been. And that one goal would have sent the game to overtime. And at that point, who knows where things goes? Maybe they still lose, but at least it would have been, it just felt like that was the spot where they absolutely could have done it. And, we always hear that the whistles go away in the playoffs. Not this year. The Jets are getting tons of opportunities every game on the power play, and they need to start potting those because it's part of how they win. It's part of their identity. It has been all year. It brought them a President's Trophy, President's Trophy, and, it should be part of their arsenal going to get a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I hate going to the same place as you, but specialty teams definitely has to be better. Dallas goes 1 for 3 on their power plays. Winnipeg goes 0 for 4. So that is my differential. This power play has been a big piece of their offense and generating goals all season long. And they just can't afford to go for an 0 for 4 in the playoffs. Like Kishore mentioned, I thought it was an astute point earlier. There's going to be some space down low based on what we saw, and they do have the type of players that could really take advantage of that. Let's see some tweaks. Let's see them work down low a bit, see what opens up. Let's see some more movement again. It felt like as that game went on, I thought the early power plays were pretty good, but as that game went on, it got more sloppy in that regard. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. They're going to need to score on the power play to keep pace with a Dallas team that, even on a night where Connor Hellebuyck looks good, puts in 3 goals. They're going to generate goals just from the star talent they have alone.
Yeah, 100%. So if they're going to be able to match it, that's one of the easiest ways that they can do it, especially when the opportunities are there.
The other one, let's see some adjustments. You got to go to a top 9 that has 3 lines that can score. If you're going to get past Dallas' star talent, let's score down the lineup. They have guys throughout lines 3, even 4, that could put the puck in the net. Winnipeg's got to get away from this shutdown Lowry, Appleton, Nino thing. Let's spread the offense out. We're going to be playing a much different series in St. Louis. The pace of it's going to matter more. The ability to put the puck in the net across the lineup and get secondary scoring is going to matter more in this series, as well as on the power play. Let's get Mason Appleton out of the top 9. Let's get Iafallo in there, right beside Lowry, with either Ehlers or Connor, and let's get things going here.
Yeah, they've got an opportunity here to really push Dallas. Otherwise, it's going to be a really long few games in Dallas watching, Stanley and Shen get absolutely chased around their own end.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. With no From Financial Face-Offs in the chat tonight, where would you like to move to, Mikey? Is there anything else standing out to you as we come up on the hour mark today?
No, I think, actually we've got our first caller here. It's Blake in St. Louis. Are you ready for Blake?
Let's talk to Blake. See how Blake's doing.
Hey, Blake, thanks for calling. You're on the landing strip. What would you like to talk about?
What's going on, boys? My bad. Busy night. I didn't get to catch much of the show, but I just tuned in, and I obviously last night's thoughts have settled down a bit, but I want to be as mad as I can, but I really think the Jets didn't play too bad of a game. I miss everyone else if people called in on their takes and all, but the only one downside I will say about last game is Velarde and Ehlers. I did like Ehlers' game in a sense, but it's round 2 at this point, and they got to step up. I mean, you got to have your top 6 guys just taking advantage at this point. And you know what? One of their guys did, Mikko Rantanen, obviously stellar Game 7 in the first round, and leaned over to Game 1 in the second round. And I hope the boys last night realized to control and advantage him. And but like I said, you can't be too mad of them last night. I hope they continue the play in a sense to Game 2. Obviously, we need to take one at home. Gonna have to win one on the road now at this point, which we haven't done yet. So Hellbuck, though, looked really good so far. All 3 goals that went in. I don't think you can blame him as much on all of them, except, maybe the first one and to an extent, but not even really. But like I said, everything's been you've heard me the past few call-ins and how I sound, and as the day goes by, and I have some positivity going into Game 2. I don't see any downsides so far. I guess, I just really are you guys going to Game 2 at all?
I will be there. I'm gonna be committed. However long this goes, I'll say this: Ireland's officially in question if they make it to round 3. I think I got to stick through this run, so I'll be there. I'll be there.
That's good. Yeah, I'm trying to think also. I don't know if Velarde last night when it was he was so close to making it 3-3, I believe. I don't know how close it got to the goal line or how it even didn't go in, but that was one thing that made my heart jump out of my chest watching TV last night. But I guess that's really all I had to call in about. But I'm gonna continue watching the show, and I don't know how long ago did you guys start?
Started about an hour ago. We went live at 9 p.m. Central here to try and make up for last night.
Dang it, I missed a lot. All right.
You're going to have to rewatch.
Worry.
You're going to have to rewatch.
Right. True on that. I will. But, I'll watch and I'll continue on. But I appreciate you guys. And let's have a good Game 2. And, I guess my one question to you guys, though, is how do you guys feel about them going on the road compared to St. Louis, I guess? And my one take I had was I don't think the Dallas crowd is comparable to the St. Louis crowd with to the extent of them being loud and how passionate they are to their fan base. I guess, what is your guys' take on the away side of it?
I think this series just stylistically plays more into Winnipeg's system than Dallas's, where I feel a bit more comfortable on the road. Whereas I thought the Blues did a really good job at home, really exposing where the Jets' downsides are. And I do think that the Winnipeg Jets are gonna have better road success in this series. Now we'll see if that's true. We'll see what that crowd's like for round 2. Going into it, the biggest distractions might be what's sitting behind Peter DeBoer, as we're all familiar with at this stage of the Dallas lore. But I do think with some tweaks here that this team can give Dallas a run on the road. We'll see what happens because you're right. We haven't seen it on the road. We've seen the 3 collapses so far. But I really do think that they got through the mental lapse of getting over that hump, that they're going to settle into their game here and play 6-7 competitive games. And I agree with a lot of what you said on game 1. It's hard to feel bad about the Jets game. They had created the better quality of looks. They carried the play for long stretches, especially after that first 5 to 8 minutes where it was all Dallas and the Jets just didn't look like the same team we've seen all year. That I do have confidence in this series about their ability to go in on the road and win a game. And it's going to be on them to prove it at this point after dropping game 1. And I think mixing that all together is where the frustration comes of losing that game, where they played well. I didn't see it quite as drastic as Scott O'Neill, though I did see the lack of execution and some of that physical buy-in missing, and I get why a coach would be driven nuts by that in round 2, game 1. But I do think there's a lot of positive developments to take out of game 1 that I do feel comfortable that we're going to get a bounce back here. And you know what? I'm going to say it. They're taking 1 out of 3 or 4 in Dallas. I feel that optimistic about this group leaving this game 1, honestly. It's just frustrating to drop a game at home.
I do too.
When you can pull it out.
I do too. But yeah, I mean, I do too. There's no way you can't look after game 1 and go, you can't feel optimistic about them going into Dallas in a sense and just being a hard competitive series. But yeah, I said, I don't know if anyone else, I might be one of the last call. I don't even know. But if anyone else wants to call, they can. And I appreciate you guys as always. Yeah, I do, though, feel like you. I do feel optimistic. And I do think they can take maybe 1 or 2 on the road in Dallas. And, yeah, let's get it. I'll be watching, and I appreciate you guys as always.
Hey, we appreciate you being here, Blake, and always calling in from St. Louis. It's always nice to hear your takes and what you're seeing. And it's nice to have some good vibes even after a loss. Obviously, we rode that first round wave pretty hard, and I can only imagine what the call-ins will be Friday night if it doesn't go the Jets' way. But I'm enjoying the optimistic version, and I do think that this team, despite the result, has given us reasons to be excited about the idea of stepping up in game 2, though I expect a better game out of Dallas too. This is going to be a competitive series. They lost the 1-goal game. Someone in the YouTube chat said this felt like their first real loss because everything else was a shit kicking. And that's what the playoffs are all about. It's going to come down to 1 goal. That goal line play with Velarde you mentioned was right in front of me, and I had jumped up thinking they scored. I had no idea how they didn't get enough on that, but that's the difference in the playoffs, right? We saw it in Winnipeg's favor in Game 7 with 1.6. We see it go the other way in game 1. Let's see where it goes. I will say this on the regression side of things. I can't see Rantanen continuing to score on every 2 shots he takes. There's going to be some downsides there for him coming.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no way Rantanen is there's no way he can put up 2 to 3 points a game each game. And if you can control him and compose him and just keep putting the puck on Ottinger and also, I was watching, last thing I will say is I was watching game 1 with my pops, obviously, even though he's come to the fact of the Blues being out. But, he was saying, take him, he just kept saying it to me, the Jets need to take him out of the series. So, even just laying every forecheck on him, just grinding him down to get him, if this is a long series, grind him down to every game, just where he's out of the play and out of the factors. So, yeah, if Rantanen can get composed, I really do think this Jets team can make a great push for sure.
Hey, Blake, appreciate hearing from you. Hard to disagree. You take it easy. We'll be back tomorrow night. I'm sure we'll be talking again tomorrow night.
Of course, you know that. All righty, guys. You guys have a good one.
You too. Thank you.
Oh, shit. Leslie.
And yeah, just to answer his question, yeah, the crowd in St. Louis for sure definitely scares me more than the crowd in Dallas. The crowd in St. Louis has had the taste of a Stanley Cup now. They know what that success is. They've got that ready to go. Whereas Dallas hasn't seen that in a whole generation now. So And thanks for hanging in with us, everybody, while we work out some dog-related technical issues.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to hold it for now. Tell me when I'm good here.
There you
I'll
go.
fix this after.
Perfect.
Jesus. Yeah. The new camera setup to fix yesterday's problem has my dog chewing at the wire now. So that was fun. Sorry about that, folks. I like this take from Mike Friesen over on Twitch because this is definitely accurate from what I watched yesterday. 27-7-91 was uncharacteristically bad. These lines could be made better, but those three need to get one. And to be honest, I have a feeling they get more than one. And I thought Nick Ehlers really struggled again through the first 40 minutes. And I thought playing next to Adam Lowry, he showed that speed game could translate in this series. And that's where my optimism comes that we do see some offense from there.
Yep, absolutely. And Jay Gary 14 said something that I forgot to bring up earlier as well. They say, I'd like to see Perfetti get a few reps with the top power play again. He filled in nicely with the injuries. Wouldn't be no, you don't want to see it again?
I do not want to see it. This group that we have has been the top group all season long. I think that's getting a little too cute. Josh Morrissey will make a difference on it, and I think that one's a bit of an overreaction.
All right, fair enough.
Though with the idea that they're looking to potentially produce some offense from the goal line, maybe Cole does fit that.
Right.
I can see it. I can see the case.
Yep. All right. We're just going to switch to the screen for one quick second here. And we'll be right back, everybody. We're just getting the camera set back into place. We'll be right with y'all.
Let's get into the 3 stars.
Right on. Let's get into the 3 stars.
Yeah, we'll fix this after. We're at the end of the show here.
Right on. All right. 3 stars for the night.
Who were your 3 stars in game 1? Fuck. Fucking dog. Fucking dog.
It's a good thing he's so damn cute.
Yeah, true.
There
True.
you go. Perfect right there. All
Mikey,
right.
who were your 3 stars last night? So stupid.
So this was an interesting one, trying to find the guys that stood out in a kind of a weird, sleepy kind of game. But I'm gonna go with at number 3. He's been halfway decent coming in these last couple games cold. So Hayden Fleury, I'm gonna throw you a 3rd star. You've been filling in admirably. You're probably going to be dropping back down to that 3rd pairing with Morrissey's return. But, going in and for these last few games, he's been just an absolute game changer for them in terms of just having a body there that isn't Logan Stanley. 2nd star, he's probably the best game since he's maybe, I don't know. Actually, no, I'm not going to go with that guy. 2nd star, I'm going to go with, this is a tough one. Connor Hellebuck, he's going to get my number 1 star on the night, even though he gave up the 3. I thought the bounce back coming into this one was good. Came off of the high, still feeling good. I don't have a number 2 star. I've got a 3 and a 1, and that's all I got for tonight. How about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go Mark Scheifele, number 3 in this one. I'm going to go Thomas Harley, number 2, and I'm going to go Mikko Rantanen as the number 1 star in this game.
That guy's he's a fluke. Come on now.
He's put up 3 goals, brother.
It's a Mason Appleton kind of game. 3 goals, but was it that good? Come on.
On our way out here, Choices points out 4 subs on YouTube away from 500. Let's get us there for tomorrow's game 2, and we'll continue building to the next milestone. All the love, support down this stretch, down this playoff run means a ton. I've gotten to meet so many people down at the rink and in the street parties. I appreciate anybody that's given me their time and wanted to say hi and that they support the show. It has been awesome. It's been awesome to see. It's been awesome to get to meet people. And let's roll this into game 2, where my bold proclamation, we see the Dylan Sandberg shutdown game. Winnipeg Jets win game 2 on the back of Dylan Sandberg, putting Mikko Rantanen into the torture chamber.
Let's go. Right on. Good night, everybody.